This is not a TEDx Talk. It has been independently organized by Allison Curry, and I will be speaking about South Korea's food culture in this presentation. Korean food has a far-reaching history that originates from agricultural and nomadic traditions in the region. Even more intricate is the culture surrounding food and the deeper meaning it has to Koreans. Starting off, South Korea is a country in East Asia, a peninsula to be exact, which was formerly joined with North Korea. The kingdom maintained unity for upwards of 1,000 years and even persevered through Manchus and Japanese invasions. Although they were ruled by Japan from 1905 to 1945 and were definitely influenced by Japanese culture, there are still major differences between the two cultures. So retaining this independence for the most part and having limited contact with the outside world is the biggest reason Korea's culture and foods are so distinct. The kingdom finally split into the North and South Korea we know today after World War II. This was when the US and Soviet Union divided the territory into two zones. It was only in more recent years, the late 1800s, that international trade took off and thus globalization, a force that causes countries to swap customs and cultures and can make them more similar. So, being isolated from countries in the West for so long and being an independent nation for most of their history, they upheld their own food culture for a lot longer than other countries. One of the distinct tastes that is vital to the Korean food culture is fermented foods. Historically, the purpose of agricultural fermentation was to preserve foods and prevent spoilage, as refrigeration technology hadn't existed yet. The preparation and consumption of fermented foods is a practice that stems back to 3rd or 4th century AD in Korea. What's more interesting is the benefits this process can have, as it promotes the growth of probiotic bacteria, a good bacteria, and has plenty of healthy properties, like antioxidant, anti-cancer, anti-aging, etc. Now, this practice has secured its spot in modern-day Korea, with the fermentation of many foods being a norm in Koreans' diet. Foods like kimchi, which can be cabbage, radish, or carrots fermented in a sweet and spicy brine, and gochujang, a fermented hot pepper paste, are staples in Korean meals. They can be thought of as condiments to Korean dishes, and they are often added to meals to complement the food, but usually aren't the main course. Speaking of main courses, Korea's food culture is very unique in that there aren't the kind of main courses American dining has. Instead, meals are prepared to have a little bit of everything, and there may not be any single one food that is the highlight, as there are so many parts of the meal to eat. For example, in an American meal, you may have steak, mashed potatoes, vegetables, and that's it. It's obvious that the steak is the headliner, and the mashed potatoes and veggies are side dishes. A Korean meal, however, could consist of some rice or noodles, another Korean staple, a soup or stew, kimchi, roasted fish, seaweed, commonly used to make a rice roll called kimbap, fish cake, don't worry, it isn't actually cake, and spinach. This may sound unrealistic, but many of the foods are side dishes called banchan, so not too much is cooked as you're supposed to eat some of everything. Still, the spread of a meal in Korea is very large and makes trying to pinpoint the most important part of the food futile. This brings me to my next point though, that the size of the dishes as well as the amount of dishes is not simply because someone has a craving for everything and can't decide what they want. It actually has cultural significance to Koreans. In Korea, meals are seen as an opportunity to connect and bond with each other. Whether that is one's family, friends, or coworkers, as company dinners are a prominent bonding technique, eating together is important to many Koreans. So, by having a meal full of many small and easy-to-grab dishes, they are able to better share a meal together. This is especially true as chopsticks are the main utensils used in Korea, and many meals are eaten family style, or from communal dishes in the center straight to one's mouth. So instead of having a huge piece of steak in the middle for everyone to share, having a multitude of side dishes makes the task of picking and eating the food more practical for the Korean food culture. In conclusion, the culture surrounding food in Korea is so unique to me, and I really do find it interesting. Most interesting to me is the significance placed on eating a meal together, which I find super endearing. So, if I had to adopt anything from their culture to American eating, it would probably be that. I would suggest we place as much importance on eating together because I believe it could help us foster our relationships and remember not to take those we have for granted. In light of COVID-19 and the current pandemic, I can't say I would want us to adopt the communal style of eating, although it's a nice sentiment. However, I really do think the idea behind food being a way to connect, catch up, or get to know someone is beautiful and could serve to benefit Americans. With all that being said, I would like to thank you for tuning into my Not a TED Talk, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.